Former AEW star and wife of WWE superstar Cody Rhodes, Brandi Rhodes, has recently been contacted by Warner Bros. Discovery. Could this mean anything about a possible AEW return? We're going to talk about that. Plus Andrade, we spoke about him earlier today, but Jose the Assistant has continued to tease the former NXT champion's departure from All Elite Wrestling. A WWE Hall of Famer is set to return back to the ring. We've got all of the details on that. And MJF has spoken about the bidding war of 2024 and which company he could end up in. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and it's quite a quiet Sunday actually for wrestling news, but a few stories to talk about in the world of AEW. So I thought I'd do an evening video here on Sunday the 2nd of October, and we're going to start off talking about Brandi Rhodes. Now previously, we had actually done a story talking about how Warner Bros. Discovery had contacted Cody Rhodes after he had departed AEW earlier this year, prior to signing with WWE, prior to returning to the company at WrestleMania. Warner Bros. Discovery actually reached out after their merger to gauge if Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, was indeed interested in returning to All Elite Wrestling and what they could do to possibly facilitate Rhodes' return to the company. Now, of course, we know that didn't happen. Rhodes indeed did return to WWE, returned at WrestleMania, had a series of fantastic matches against Seth freaking Rollins before tearing his pec earlier this year. He's currently out of action after undergoing surgery. The expectation is that Rhodes will be back in January, possibly in time for the Royal Rumble and possibly in time to begin a feud with Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship. But what about Brandi? What about his wife, Brandi Rhodes? We've seen she's had her projects on the side. We've seen a shot of Brandi. She continues to film that. I believe she's just launched her podcast, Two Truths and a Lie, or something like that. I think the first episode was with Renee Paquette. So what's going on with Brandi Rhodes at the moment? Well, we have a bit of an update on Brandi's future in professional wrestling and a possible, depending on how you look at it, return to AEW for the wife of the American Nightmare. This comes from Sean Rossap of Fightful Select, who writes, quote, Cody Rhodes, of course, is signed to WWE, but Brandi is technically still a free agent after she did not accompany her husband in his return to WWE. Now, of course, she was actually at WrestleMania. She was backstage with Cody Rhodes. Nevertheless, Fightful had reported this past summer that Brandi had participated in some matches at the WWE Performance Center. We had actually covered this on the channel at the time. There wasn't a ton of details surrounding this. There wasn't a ton of details about what this meant. There had been reports previously that Brandi Rhodes did have a good dialogue with WWE and still did have a good relationship with WWE, and the expectation was that she would possibly be back at some point, or whilst maybe initially there was an interest in bringing Brandi back to the company, there was a feeling at some point she could show up rather. But after those reports of her participating in some matches at the WWE Performance Center, Fightful hadn't heard of a deal being reached in that regard. They had also heard she was hopeful she could integrate Culture City with WWE, as she is a board member of that organization. Now, they have not heard of any subsequent contact between All Elite Wrestling and Brandi Rhodes. However, after that story we spoke about previously with Warner Bros. Discovery's effort to retain Cody Rhodes, a source familiar to the situation did claim that Warner Bros. Discovery had actually made contact with Brandi Rhodes in September of 2022. So basically, in the past month, in the past 4 weeks, Warner Bros. Discovery has actually been in contact with Brandi Rhodes. Now, those that Fightful have spoken to claim that Brandi and Warner Bros. Discovery actually aren't typically in regular contact, so the fact that they reached out to Brandi is somewhat out of the norm. It's not a case of they're constantly communicating or they're constantly talking, so it's no big deal. Realistically, they're not constantly in contact, so that's quite interesting, is it not? Now, Fightful are stating that Brandi and Warner Bros. Discovery maintain a cordial relationship. They haven't learned of the context of the conversation or what actually they discussed when Warner Bros. Discovery did indeed reach out to Brandi Rhodes. Now, before the rumor mill starts, Fightful are keen to establish that Warner Bros. Discovery sources have indicated they've been very happy with AEW, specifically in recent months. This was a strong line that we also heard heard earlier this day when Warner Bros. Discovery are actually very happy with the ratings, especially in the month of September for AEW Dynamite. They've been consistently over 1 million viewers. Of course, this past week they dipped below 1 million, but that was because of everyone watching the coverage of Hurricane Ian. I think 7 out of the top 8 cable originals on Wednesday night, were on the coverage of Hurricane Ian. So again, I think the feeling was that it probably, most likely, and I think Dynamite did, was it 990,000 viewers on average? They would have done over 1 million viewers had Hurricane Ian not been a situation. And of course, thoughts, prayers, and condolences, and everything goes out to everyone affected by Hurricane Ian. Again, the footage of that has been just absolutely insane. But to bring it back to Brandy Rhodes, do I think she's going to go back to AEW? I would be really, really surprised, and I don't see... What does AEW get out of that? I mean, no disrespect to Brandy Rhodes, but you don't sign her because she's a fantastic wrestler. You sign... AEW's only benefit in signing Brandy Rhodes would be that they want a bit of attention, or they want to create a bit of buzz of, oh, Brandy Rhodes is back with AEW. What does this mean? What does this mean for Cody Rhodes? It wouldn't mean anything for Cody Rhodes. It would mean nothing. Cody Rhodes is under contract for a long time to WWE. We don't know how long. I think it's 3, possibly 4, 5 years. So it wouldn't mean anything in that regard. Are you going to bring Brandy back to work matches? She can wrestle a match, but she's not the best female wrestler in the world. So she doesn't add anything to the women's division by that context. She's a name, and people would be talking about it on social media for a week, maybe. That would be about it. Now she's familiar with the corporate side of the company. She was the chief brand officer previously, prior to her and Cody leaving earlier this year. So I guess you could argue that you could bring her back to be back in that role if someone hasn't filled that role. And she does have those contacts and those links, and she's familiar with the work AEW was doing earlier this year. I get that from a corporate point of view, maybe that's what you would do. But apart from that, I don't really see what AEW truly benefits from that. Now, it must be stated, this isn't AEW reaching out to Brandy Rhodes, it's Warner Bros. Discovery. So Warner Bros. Discovery could be reaching out and just saying, look, you did have a reality show on TNT. It did pretty well, Rhodes to the Top. We understand that possibly Cody Rhodes being involved in that might not happen, but maybe we could get a reality show with just Brandy. Maybe we could get a reality show that's just got, you know, the Rhodes family involved in it. Maybe we could do something, or maybe we could get a shot of Brandy on one of the networks. Maybe there are projects of something that we could do. Maybe there is still business to be done here, kind of situation. And I guess that's possible. My expectation is, though, that eventually she will end up in WWE. And the reason I think she'll end up in WWE, not just because Cody's there, but because WWE tends to not be able to help themselves. Eventually, they will run out of ideas or things to do, or there will come a storyline where Cody Rhodes is facing off against someone with, you know, whether it's Finn Balor, maybe Cody Rhodes is feuding with the Judgment Day, and it's, you know, Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley, and it just so happens that Cody Rhodes needs a female presence to help fight off Rhea Ripley, and it just so happens that his wife's also a wrestler, and Brandy Rhodes comes in. Or maybe Cody Rhodes feuds with Edge at some point. It's going to be Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Cody and Brandy. Or maybe, you know, Cody Rhodes is feuding with a Montez Ford when he's establishing a singles run, and it's Cody and Brandy versus Montez Ford and Bianca Belair. They won't be able to help themselves at that point. So I would be really, really surprised, honestly, if Brandy Rhodes went back to AEW or Warner Bros. Discovery was able to facilitate that. I think chances are she'll end up in WWE at some point. Would I be shocked if Brandy Rhodes is doing some kind of work or some kind of show of Warner Bros. Discovery? No, I wouldn't be shocked with that, because I could see her, you know, them putting a shot of Brandy on TV. I mean, why? I don't know. But certainly a reality show, I could see that being a possibility. But as far as Brandy going into AEW, I think that's really unlikely, especially with how it ended with Rhodes, Cody Rhodes in AEW. Not that we've heard anything publicly of anything bad happening, but clearly there was some kind of disagreement, you could say, because Tony Khan had a year option on Cody's contract. He decided not to take it. Clearly there was a feeling of, you know, from Cody's perspective of, I should be making more, I should be earning more, I'm worth more, and Tony Khan disagreed, and now Cody's in WWE. So I would be really surprised to see that happen. But it's pro wrestling. Stranger things have happened. Now, we spoke about Andrade earlier today, possibly leaving All Elite Wrestling. Of course, he's putting his career on the line on a live edition of AEW Rampage next Friday. This comes amid rumors he is unhappy with his booking, unhappy with his television time, unhappy with promises not being fulfilled. And Andrade AEW's career will be on the line on the October 7 edition of AEW Rampage. Andrade will take on the Dark Order's Preston 10 Vance in a career versus mask match on the show, but will the outcome lead to Andrade's departure from the company? AEW star has been all over social media, seemingly begging for his freedom lately, but it's unknown if he's genuinely unhappy in AEW or if he's just trolling the wrestling community as part of an ongoing storyline. Regardless of where the future of the wrestler lies, Jose, the assistant, of course, will always have his back. But a recent social media post from Andrade's manager further teased his client's exit from the promotion. He said, quote, "You are one of the best in-ring competitors. I learned a great amount working alongside you. You brought me to AEW and I stand by your side in whatever choice you make next," Jose wrote on Twitter. "Thank you for everything, Manuel Andrade." While all the signs point to this being a work, Andrade has created a lot of speculation about his future in recent times. A few days ago, he took to social media, struck Triple H's signature pose, suggesting he wanted WWE's chief content officer to contact him. Prior to the latest developments, both he and Jose the assistant shared hourglass images on social media, hinting they were potentially working on a storyline involving Andrade's time running out. However, the future of Andrade in AEW should become much clearer after the upcoming episode of Rampage. As I spoke about this morning, of course, if Andrade loses the match and leaves, you would say, well, it's not totally surprising. However, I think the outcome that actually makes more sense, realistically, from a booking perspective here, is Preston Vance losing. You look at Preston Vance and you would say, great look, great physique. When you see him without the mask, which he's without the mask quite often on social media, you would say that looks like could be, a big babyface. And I think that's maybe Tony Khan or AEW, they're deciding or have decided they want Preston Vance to have a bit of a run, a bit of a push, and to make him into a stronger, bigger single star. And they've decided actually to do that, we want to take the mask off him. We want to develop him a little bit more. And I think that's what they're going to do. Again, it's the 2-year anniversary, I believe, of Mr. Brody Lee's final match in AEW. So they're tying in the Dark Order elements of that. And I think they want a bit of a shock factor. I think they're assuming that everyone thinks that Andrade's going to lose because he wants out, because he's unhappy, etc., etc. So everyone will go into that match assuming that Andrade will lose. And when he wins and Preston Vance loses his mask, not that it's going to be shocking because everyone knows what he looks like anyway, it's going to be part of a storyline to further establish Preston Vance, in my opinion, and maybe separate him from the Dark Order. I think that's the route they're going to go down, honestly. So I think that Andrade sticks with AEW. I think the reports we have heard previously about Tony Khan recently setting somewhat of a mandate whereby it's, I'm going to see out wrestlers' contracts. I'm not going to release anyone. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis. If someone, has gross misconduct or, we have to let them go from whatever, disciplinary reasons, we'll let them go. But apart from that, people have signed contracts, we're going to keep them. And it appears that AEW and Tony Khan really has no interest in shrinking their roster anytime soon. And frankly, things can change, of course, because someone can get quite hot, someone can catch fire, make some steam, and suddenly they can be working on top in All Elite Wrestling. As I spoke about previously, I think that the key to the happiness, I think, of a lot of people is getting the Ring of Honor brand up and going. If AEW and Tony Khan specifically can find a weekly television deal for Ring of Honor, that solves a lot of his issues. If he can add an extra 2 hours of television to his already packed schedule, I don't know how he's going to do it, but if he can add that time and have a weekly televised Ring of Honor show that's 2 hours, I think that makes life a lot easier for him, because I think then he has talents like Andrade, like FTR, like Miro, like whoever that aren't currently being used every single week on Dynamite, and he can just shift them over to Ring of Honor. And when they're finished in the Ring of Honor territory, they can swap over with some of the people on Dynamite. And I guess you do create somewhat of a brand split. And I know that it's kind of ironic that the way for AEW to resolve their issues at the moment is to do what WWE tried to do in 2002, and that's have a brand split. But maybe that's what they need to do. I mean, they've got the roster size for it, and And again, I think that's the key to resolving everyone's unhappiness. I really do. Ricky Steamboat is returning to in-ring action. It's not only Ric Flair that is returning to the ring this year. The Dragon is set to return to the ring on November 27th, and the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion is bringing some backup to the Dorton Arena. The Wrestling Observer newsletter is reporting that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat will team with AAA, Ring of Honor, and IWGP Tag Team Champions FTR at Big Time Wrestling's Return of the Dragon in Raleigh, North Carolina. The trio will be taking on the next generation of horsemen, Brock Anderson, Black Machismo, also known as Jay Lethal, and a mystery partner will unite as Arn Anderson's Four Horsemen, and they will be accompanied by the enforcer, Arn Anderson. Now, FTR had previously worked with Big Time Wrestling in a match where they were managed by Bret the Hitman Hart. The Rock and Roll Express will also face the Briscoes at the event. Now, this match will be Steamboat's first match since 2010, where he teamed with his son Richie Steamboat to defeat Kalen Croft and Trent Beretta in a tag team match in WWE's former developmental territory, Florida Championship Wrestling. Now, prior to that, Steamboat actually had a brief comeback, wrestling Chris Jericho alongside Jimmy Snuka and Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 25. This then led to a match between Jericho and Steamboat at the next month's Backlash pay-per-view, as well as a tour of WWE's live events. He was actually fantastic. He was sensational. Not only in the WrestleMania match, but also in the matches after that. It was fantastic. Now, Steamboat being linked to a return to the ring isn't actually the first time we've heard this year. Steamboat actually, a return to the ring had been in the news earlier this year. He reportedly turned down an offer to take part in Ric Flair's last match in July, saying he had a lot of respect for his former rival, but had to decline. Steamboat's return to the ring was announced earlier this month, which has inspired the recently retired Flair to get back into training. I must be said, I'm concerned about this because obviously I'm concerned about Ricky Steamboat's, his health and how he's going to fare in all of this. I mean, how old is he? He's 69 years old. He's nearly 70. He's only a couple of years younger than Ric Flair, so I have my same reservations about that. I also have my reservations because he's also had his health issues. He's had his health issues too. I believe, if I recall correctly, the last time he was actually physical for WWE was in 2010. I think it was in June of 2010, and he was part of an angle where he and several other legends were attacked by the Nexus. Now, as part of the storyline, it was announced that Steamboat had suffered injuries from the attack. However, it was actually then further announced that Steamboat actually felt legitimate pain in his neck and his shoulders as a result of the attack from the Nexus at the time, and was legitimately hospitalized. And it caused WWE to take down any storyline information. And from what I recall, it was quite serious. I forget, or I'm struggling to find any details of what it was, but I recall possible aneurysms or something like that. It was very concerning, certainly. So the fact that he's getting back into the ring now at this stage in his life is incredibly concerning. And I recall Tony Khan pulling FTR and other AEW talents reportedly out of the Ric Flair's last match event, obviously not Jay Lethal and Andrade, but other people out of the event out of concern that something bad could happen to Flair, or possible animosity with Flair in terms of what he had allegedly done with that Dark Side of the Ring episode last year, etc. So the fact that FTR are able to team with Steamboat here is a concern. And look, let's face it, there's a mystery opponent involved here as well that's going to be teaming with Brock Anderson and Jay Lethal. I am incredibly concerned that that person is Ric Flair. I don't know. I'm trying to think why. Flair would want it. Flair would do it as well. That's the thing. I don't care about Ric Flair's last match. He would 1,000,000% do it. 1,000,000% do it. I just think that he and everyone involved might think, why wouldn't we have just done this at StarCast? Why wouldn't he have done this for Conrad Thompson? That would have been a bigger event. Maybe it was a case of Steamboat didn't feel ready at the time, or money. I don't know. And when Conrad Thompson did an interview, I recall, with Nick Houseman of Wrestling Inc., he seemed to imply that there was still some animosity between Thompson and Steamboat, the way the negotiations came to an end. So I don't know who that opponent will be. Logically, you would say it's going to be another legend. Who that legend will be, I don't know. Logically, the only one that feels around would be Flair. What other big rival has Steamboat had in his career that he's most closely associated with that could possibly still do it? He had a few with Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts is alive. He ain't wrestling, because I've seen him do podcast episodes and he's got oxygen up his nose. So, if it's Ric Flair, could you imagine? I mean, he shouldn't have been in the ring anyway during his last match. He passed out twice. And he claims that's because he was dehydrated. But I don't know. I hope not. I don't hope it's not Flair. And I have my concerns about Steamboat, honestly. And I hope his work is limited in that match. And I just hope he gets through it safely. And everyone involved is okay, because that is certainly a concern. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you today. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.